And welcome to another edition of the Screen Team here on today's Talk 930 KWOC. And we've got a good show for you today. We're doing something a little bit different as far as the fact that our kind of theme for today's show are end trilogies, I guess, if you will. We're reviewing three movies. We're reviewing three movies, but we're also reviewing the number three in a trilogy of a movie, okay? Let me try to explain a little bit better. The movies we're reviewing today include Back to the Future Part 3. They also include Insidious Chapter 3. I think people get where we're going now. And we're also going to be doing Spider-Man 3. So we're doing three films. It's confusing, but hopefully we'll get through it. All right. I got Jake with us for the first round. And Jake, we're reviewing a movie that I think we both really enjoy and really like. And it's Back to the Future 3. And in fact, you told me this is your favorite out of the trilogy, correct?
Definitely as a kid it was.
Okay.
It was the one when I was little, I could not get enough of it. Of course, it was, brand new around time I was about 3 years old, so another three for you. And
yeah. I'm still confused with all the threes, man.
But I really enjoyed this one a lot. Of course, I love the entire trilogy. I can't really order them. I don't know. The one I've probably seen the most is probably 3, though, because when I was a kid, I watched it over and over again.
So what was it as a kid? Was it because they were in the 1800s? Because there was like a Western almost?
I think so. I think it was maybe because the Wild West thing and the trains. I really love trains. So, having the train being a main function of time travel in this movie, being a major plot point, they needed the train. That was a big thing for me. So I was real big into steam engines when I was a kid. So I think that was a big part of it. But really just with the entire trilogy, there's not one movie that holds the other two back, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
They all boost each other. They all nod to each other. And I think this one, as far as carrying forth the attitude and the emotions and a lot of the jokes where you had to see the previous two movies to get some of the jokes, I think it did really well at that. Of course, you kept all of your main cast with the exception of Crispin Glover, of course, who only did the first one because I think he was demanding way too much money.
That's what I heard, yeah. That's the story.
And he's just kind of odd from a lot of interviews you hear with him and people talking that know Crispin Glover. He's very selective about the roles he takes, and which is odd because it doesn't seem like it because he's done some very minor roles in like that Like Mike movie. It was a basketball movie where he was like the bad guy. He was like the adoption agency chairman or something. And
honestly, I think he's just full of baloney. I think that he got a little too big for his britches and it didn't work out and movie roles weren't coming in and he's like, well, I'm just being selective. That's just the way that I perceive things. But Back to the Future 3, 2, and 1, this to me is a perfect trilogy. And it's so hard to make, it's hard to make a good film. Then it's super hard to make a sequel that's just as good or even better than the first one, and then to make a third one that's, as equal counterparts with the other two, it's almost impossible. I mean, I think The Godfather did it, but a lot of people don't like Godfather Part 3. We both like the Star Wars trilogy, but a lot of people don't like Return of the Jedi.
I don't see why.
I don't either. People don't like Ewoks, but whatever, man. The Lord of the Rings, to me, I consider that one movie.
Yeah.
They're all shot at the same time. Even though they're three separate things, I consider it at one. This one right here, the whole Back to the Future trilogy, I thought was just outstanding and about as close to perfect as you can get. So many good lines, and I enjoyed this one because it's a Western and it's fun and like riding horses and one of the big action sequences is with the train at the very end and stuff like that. But just got so much fun comedy in there. There was a salute to Michael Jackson because you forget that this is still going on supposedly in 1985. So there's all these 80s references still.
Yeah. And I think that's what made Part 2 and Part 3 so good is because, you're living in the world of perpetual 1985. That's where all the characters' mindsets are.
Yeah.
With the exception of wherever they're traveling to in time. And I think throwing in the nods to Michael Jackson and throwing in all those like the Clint Eastwood jokes and everything like that in Part 3.
Yeah.
I mean, it's through the mind of a 1985 teenager who gets 100 years, to his hometown 100 years in the past.
One of my favorite scenes in that movie is when Michael J. Fox decides he's not going to fight Biff Tanner's great uncle or grandfather or whatever, and that one character's like, everywhere you go, people are going to say that Clint Eastwood is a yellow belly. That was just so hilarious, man. And of course, you also have a love story in this film. Not the love story that you're expecting. You're expecting Michael J. Fox to fall in love, but Doc Brown falls in love with Mary Steenburgen's character.
Exactly.
And I was, even though it's not really a love story, I was rooting for those two characters to hit it off and to take it to the next level, I guess.
That's the thing, and it's the one where Doc finds love. Marty's just he's actually really a very concrete character throughout. He does grow, and actually he does not really have a major character change until part 3, which they nod to the whole, he can't stand to be called chicken or can't stand to be told he's too afraid to do something. That kind of starts in part 2, and they resolve that in part 3 with Marty, instead of just going all guts and getting up front.
Yeah.
He gets smart about how he fights and he picks his battles.
So as far as the whole chicken thing, did that ever bother you, or did you just kind of accept that? And because to me, it just seemed like it was kind of put in there. Like if it was a reference to the first film, I could have seen it, but it just seems like they kind of put it in there to find some sort of to make up some sort of issue with the character.
Yeah, and it's hard because they shot part 2 and part 3 at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And they shot it like one movie, so you kind of have the same thing as Lord of the Rings going on in part 2 and part 3, where part 1 is pretty much your basic material for the rest of the story to build off of that. So I think them adding that in part 2, they just needed, we've seen Marty and how he is, and this is his attitude. We need to add a little more depth to his character to continue the story along. So it doesn't really that's never really bothered me, though. The whole he's afraid to be called chicken or something like that. I think it actually really fits his character pretty well, but at the same time, I can see where it's kind of a wedged in and almost not quite a Marty McFly trait.
Let me ask you something. A couple months ago, we reviewed Back to the Future 2 and talked about all the similarities of how the future has finally incorporated with present day and stuff like that. And a lot of interviews have been going on with Christopher Lloyd and some of the other characters, and Christopher Lloyd says he'll want to do another one, and but the writer Bob Gale says he doesn't want to do another one. Which side of the fence are you on? Would you want to see a 4, or are you happy with everything?
I think it'd be, especially in this day and age, I think it'd be really, really hard to pull off a 4th Back to the Future movie. It'd have to be totally different characters, I think. I think it'd have to be another generation, maybe Doc Brown's boys, or like they did at the cartoon show in the early 90s.
I don't remember that.
They did a short-lived Back to the Future cartoon in the early 90s after 3 came out, and it was about Doc Brown and his kids. I don't think Marty was even a part of it.
Cool. I always heard a rumor that they were going to do a 4th one, and Marty McFly was going to be the Doc Brown type character in this one, and he was going to, be the wise old man, and some other actor would be the Michael J. Fox character. But I'm happy with the way this trilogy is, and I think it holds up very good today. I think these are movies that we can show our kids, and they would still enjoy. They'd
still get it. It is so hard to make that perfect timeless movie. Back to the Future, the original, of course, has everything of a teen movie. It's got humor for kids. It's got humor for adults without being vulgar or anything like that. It's just very classic writing, a very, very classic film. And not only did they make one perfect movie, they made 3 perfect movies and combined them for a very cohesive story where everything blends well together. I think that in this day and age, especially, it is with those who are in control in Hollywood, it is too hard for people like Bob Gale and Robert Zemeckis to have that kind of control to make that perfect film again or that perfect series again. So a 4th one, I think, would only hurt the series as a whole.
I agree 100%. The movie's called Back to the Future 3. Jake, thank you so much for coming in. Sabrina will be in next, and we'll review Insidious Chapter 3. That's next on Today's Talk 930 KWOC.